I never imagined I'd stand in this sleek corner office, watching my husband on his knees, begging me to save the career he destroyed our marriage for. The floor-to-ceiling windows behind him frame Chicago's skyline, but all I see is Cole's face, twisted with desperation and guilt. His boss, Sterling, leans against his desk, arms crossed, watching this pathetic display with detached amusement. Cole's voice cracks as he pleads. "Indy, please. You have to help me. I'll lose everything." His hands reach toward me, but I step back, my designer heels clicking against the polished marble. Everything. The word hangs in the air like smoke. He'd already lost everything that mattered the moment he chose this office, this man, this lie over me. But he doesn't know that yet. He doesn't know that for the past 6 months, I've been systematically dismantling every piece of the life he thought was secure. He doesn't know that Sterling's downfall started the day I discovered their affair. And he definitely doesn't know that I'm the reason he's on his knees right now. My name is Indy, and this is my story. It's not perfect, but it's one that needs to be shared because I hope someone out there can learn from my mistakes. The discovery happened on a Tuesday. Ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday in March. I'd come home early from a client meeting, hoping to surprise Cole with his favorite takeout from that Italian place on Michigan Avenue. Instead, I found his phone buzzing on our kitchen counter, forgotten in his rush to his late meeting with Sterling. The screen lit up with a message preview. My thumb hovered over it, not because I suspected anything, but because 5 years of marriage had made checking his notifications second nature. Missing you already. Tonight was incredible. Can't wait to have you again. The sender was listed as S. Maxwell. Sterling Maxwell. Cole's boss. The man who'd been to our home for dinner parties. The man I chatted with about his wife's charity work. The man whose company Cole had dedicated 6 years of his life to climbing. I sat down at our kitchen island, my hands trembling as I unlocked his phone. The password was our anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. What I found in those messages destroyed everything I thought I knew about my husband, my marriage, my life. Photos, videos, explicit conversations detailing encounters in Sterling's office, hotel rooms, business trips that Cole had sworn were about contracts and clients. The affair wasn't new. It had been going on for 14 months, longer than we'd been trying for a baby. I sat there for 3 hours, reading every message, saving every photo to a cloud account Cole didn't know I had access to. By the time he came home that night, smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't his, I'd compiled enough evidence to bury them both. "Hey, babe," he'd said, kissing my forehead like he always did. "Sorry I'm late." Sterling needed to go over the Michener account details. I smiled up at him, my face a mask of wifely devotion. "No problem. How'd it go?" "Exhausting, but good. I think we're close to sealing the deal." He loosened his tie, the same tie I'd given him for Christmas. "I'm beat. Mind if we just order pizza and watch something mindless?" "Sounds perfect," I'd said, even as my mind raced with images of him with Sterling. Images I couldn't unsee. Images that rewrote every late night, every business trip, every time he'd been too tired to touch me. That night, lying beside him in our bed, I made a decision. I wouldn't scream, wouldn't cry, wouldn't confront him in a fit of rage and give him the satisfaction of seeing me broken. No, I would be smarter than that. I would take everything he'd built and watch it crumble. And I would do it so carefully, so methodically, that he'd never see it coming until it was far too late to stop it. The next morning, I woke up with perfect clarity. Cole left for work at 7, same as always, kissing me goodbye and promising to be home for dinner. The moment his car pulled out of our driveway, I got to work. First, I called my college roommate, Petra, who worked in corporate intelligence. "I need information on Sterling Maxwell," I told her. "Everything you can find. Business dealings, personal life, vulnerabilities. And I need it quietly." Petra didn't ask questions. She'd been through a messy divorce herself and understood what discretion meant. "Give me 48 hours. Next, I opened my laptop and started researching business law, corporate ethics violations, and employment contracts. Cole had signed a morality clause when he joined Sterling's company 6 years ago. Standard procedure for executive positions. What wasn't standard was how strictly it could be enforced if the right evidence surfaced. I spent the next week studying Sterling's company structure, identifying key board members, learning their concerns about the company's public image. Sterling Maxwell Enterprises had recently gone public, which meant shareholder scrutiny and media attention. A scandal could tank their stock price overnight. By Friday, Petra delivered a file that made my carefully constructed calm crack just slightly into a smile. Sterling wasn't just having an affair with my husband. He had a pattern of relationships with subordinates, all carefully hidden behind NDAs and generous severance packages. But patterns could be exposed, and exposure could be devastating. I didn't confront Cole. Instead, I played the perfect wife. I made his favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, asked about his day with genuine interest. He never suspected that every conversation was me gathering intelligence. Every dinner was me studying his tells. Every kiss goodnight was me cataloging his lies. Sterling's talking about promoting me to VP of Operations, Cole said one evening over wine. His eyes shone with ambition I'd once found attractive. It would mean more travel, longer hours, but the salary bump would be incredible. That's amazing, I said, raising my glass. You've worked so hard for this. We've worked hard, he corrected, taking my hand. I couldn't have done any of this without your support, Indy. You're my rock. I squeezed his hand and smiled, even as I mentally calculated how that promotion would make his fall so much more satisfying. The higher he climbed, the farther he'd have to drop. 2 weeks later, he got the promotion. Sterling hosted a celebration dinner at an upscale restaurant, wives included. I wore a red dress Cole loved and chatted pleasantly with Sterling's wife, Margot, about her foundation work. Sterling was charming, professional, acting like the respectable businessman everyone believed him to be. Under the table, I watched his foot brush against Cole's. Watched my husband's slight smile. Watched them exchange a look that spoke of shared secrets. That night, I started phase 1 of my plan. I'd always been good with business. Before marrying Cole, I'd worked in marketing and brand strategy for several major firms. I'd given it up when Cole's career started demanding more travel and longer hours, telling myself I was supporting his dreams. Now I realized I'd been supporting his affair. I dusted off my old portfolio and started reaching out to former colleagues and clients. Within 2 weeks, I'd secured 3 freelance contracts. Within a month, I'd registered my own consulting firm, Blackwell Strategy Solutions. Cole barely noticed. He was too busy with his new VP responsibilities, which apparently included even more late nights with Sterling. I'm starting my own business, I told him casually one Saturday morning. He looked up from his laptop, distracted. That's great, babe. What kind of business? Brand strategy and crisis management consulting. Sounds interesting. Need any startup capital? No, I've got it covered. I didn't mention that I'd been quietly moving money from our joint account into a separate business account he had no access to, or that I'd consulted with a divorce attorney about protecting my assets, or that I was already working with 3 of Sterling's competitors, learning everything I could about his business weaknesses. Cole kissed my forehead and went back to his laptop, already forgetting about my venture. Perfect. The less attention he paid, the easier this would be. My first real strike came through Sterling's board of directors. Through Petra's research, I'd identified 3 board members who were already concerned about Sterling's leadership style and the company's recent PR problems. I arranged a consultation meeting with one of them, Lawrence Brennan, under the guise of offering strategic advice for his personal investment portfolio. Your expertise comes highly recommended, Lawrence said during our lunch meeting at the Drake Hotel. I've been looking for someone who understands both brand management and crisis prevention. I specialize in identifying vulnerabilities before they become public problems, I said smoothly. In today's climate, one scandal can destroy decades of reputation building. You're preaching to the choir. Our CEO is brilliant but reckless. Some of his personal decisions make me nervous. I leaned forward slightly. What kind of decisions? Let's just say I've heard rumors about inappropriate relationships with staff. Nothing concrete, but where there's smoke. He shrugged. If something like that went public, our stock would plummet. I nodded thoughtfully, planting seeds. Have you considered implementing stronger oversight policies? Clear ethical guidelines? Sometimes establishing those preventatively sends a message that the company takes such matters seriously. That's not a bad idea. Over the next hour, I subtly positioned myself as someone who could help them avoid the exact scandal I was planning to create. By the time lunch ended, Lawrence had hired me as a consultant to review Sterling Maxwell Enterprises' ethics policies and public image vulnerabilities. The irony was delicious. I was now being paid to identify the weaknesses I planned to exploit. Cole's career continued its upward trajectory, oblivious to the foundation crumbling beneath him. He traveled more frequently, always with Sterling. Seattle, New York, Los Angeles. Each trip came with elaborate cover stories about client meetings and contract negotiations. I smiled and wished him safe travels, then used his absence to dig deeper. Through my consulting work with the board, I gained access to company files, email systems, and internal communications. I learned that Sterling's pattern of affairs wasn't just unethical, it was actively damaging the company. 3 former employees had left with suspiciously generous severance packages in the past 4 years. I found the NDAs they'd signed, buried in legal files. Each one had been involved with Sterling. Each one had been paid substantial sums to disappear quietly. But NDAs had limits, especially when broader illegal activity was involved. I started reaching out to these former employees through carefully worded LinkedIn messages, positioning myself as someone conducting confidential research on workplace culture. 2 of them agreed to talk, off the record. What they shared was damning. Sterling didn't just have affairs. He leveraged promotions, withheld opportunities, and created hostile work environments for anyone who rejected or ended relationships with him. It was a pattern of abuse hidden behind executive privilege. Cole wasn't just complicit. He was benefiting from a system that destroyed others. His promotion to VP had come right after their affair began. His rapid advancement wasn't about merit. It was about being Sterling's favorite. My business grew rapidly, partly because I was genuinely good at what I did, partly because I was networking with purpose. Every client I took on was strategic. Every connection I made was calculated. I built relationships with journalists, corporate lawyers, and industry insiders, all while maintaining my role as Cole's supportive wife. "You seem really happy lately," Cole observed one evening. We were having dinner at home, a rare night without his phone buzzing with messages from Sterling. "Business must be going well." "It is. I landed the Harrington Group account today. Major brand overhaul project." "That's impressive." He reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm proud of you, Indy. I know I've been distracted with work, but I'm glad you found something you're passionate about." I looked at his face, trying to find the man I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. All I saw was a stranger wearing his features. A man who could lie to my face while building a life with someone else. "Thanks," I said simply. "How are things at Sterling Maxwell?" "Complicated. There's some board drama about new ethics policies. Sterling's annoyed about the extra oversight." My heart rate picked up, but I kept my expression neutral. "What kind of policies?" "Just bureaucratic nonsense about workplace relationships and reporting structures. Sterling thinks it's unnecessary micromanagement." I nodded sympathetically, hiding my satisfaction. The ethics policies I'd recommended to Lawrence were being implemented. Sterling was already feeling the pressure, even if he didn't know where it was coming from. Phase 2 was beginning. The confrontation I'd been avoiding finally came 6 months after I'd discovered the affair. I'd held it together perfectly, maintaining my cover, building my case. But that night, coming home to find Cole's phone open on the bathroom counter, I couldn't stop myself. The message on the screen was from Sterling. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible. My place tomorrow." I picked up the phone and walked into our bedroom where Cole was getting ready for bed. "We need to talk," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. He turned, saw his phone in my hand, and his face went pale. "Indy, don't." I held up my hand. "Don't lie to me anymore. I know about Sterling. I've known for 6 months." The silence that followed was deafening. Cole opened his mouth, closed it, then sank onto the edge of our bed. "I can explain." Can you explain how you've been sleeping with your boss for over a year while coming home to me? Can you explain the business trips that were actually romantic getaways? Can you explain why you let me believe we had a future while you were building one with him? It's not like that. His voice was weak. It's complicated. Sterling and I are having an affair. There's nothing complicated about betrayal, Cole. You made a choice. Every single day for 14 months, you chose him over me. Tears filled his eyes. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. The connection with Sterling, it was unexpected. But I still love you, Indy. I never stopped loving you. I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't sound like me. You love me? You've been lying to my face for over a year, and you think that's love. I do love you. Both things can be true. Cole stood up, reaching for me. Please, we can work through this. I'll end things with Sterling. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. You'll end things with Sterling? I repeated slowly. The man who promoted you to VP. The man your entire career depends on. You'll just walk away from that. He hesitated, and in that pause, I saw the truth. He wouldn't. He couldn't. His career, his ambition, his life with Sterling mattered more than I did. I thought so, I said quietly. Get out. Indy, get out of our bedroom. Sleep in the guest room. Tomorrow, we'll discuss how this is going to work going forward. But right now, I can't look at you. Cole left, defeated and confused. He thought this was the worst of it. He thought the confrontation was my revenge. He had no idea that everything I'd built over the past 6 months was about to destroy not just our marriage, but his entire world. I didn't cry that night. I'd done my crying months ago. Now I just felt cold, calculated determination. The game was almost over, and I was about to make my final move. The next morning, Cole tried to apologize over coffee, but I cut him off. I don't want apologies. I want to understand something. Did Sterling promise you more than a promotion? Partnership? Ownership stake? Cole looked surprised by the business question. Eventually, yes. He's been talking about making me a partner when I hit certain benchmarks. And those benchmarks are bringing in $50 million in new contracts over the next 2 years. I nodded slowly, pieces clicking into place. So your relationship with him isn't just personal. It's transactional. He's leveraging your feelings to secure your loyalty. It's not like that. What we have is real. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like he found your weakness and exploited it. You're ambitious, Cole. You always have been. Sterling offered you success and affection, and you couldn't resist either. His jaw clenched. You don't understand our connection. Maybe not. But I understand business. And this is a business arrangement wrapped in emotional manipulation. I stood up, gathering my bag. I'm going to work. We'll talk about living arrangements tonight. Where are you going? I have a meeting with Lawrence Brennan and the rest of Sterling Maxwell's board of directors. They've asked me to present my findings on the company's ethical vulnerabilities. The color drained from Cole's face. What findings? I smiled, cold and controlled. You'll see soon enough. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. I'd spent weeks preparing the presentation, making sure every piece of evidence was documented, every allegation was verifiable, every conclusion was irrefutable. Lawrence Brennan introduced me to the other board members. Indy Blackwell has been consulting with us on ethics policies and corporate image. She's prepared a report on potential vulnerabilities we need to address. I connected my laptop to the conference room screen. Thank you for having me. What I'm about to present is sensitive, but critical for the company's future. The first slide showed statistics on workplace relationships and their legal implications. Professional, academic, setting the stage. Then I moved into specific cases. In the past 4 years, Sterling Maxwell Enterprises has paid out over $3.2 million in severance packages to employees who left under unusual circumstances. Each signed an NDA. Each had a personal relationship with CEO Sterling Maxwell. The room went silent. I showed redacted emails, timeline correlations, payment records. These relationships created a pattern of favoritism, unfair promotion practices, and potential hostile work environment claims. The NDAs are protecting the company now, but they won't hold up if broader misconduct is revealed. One board member, Patricia Chun, leaned forward. Are you alleging that our CEO has been systematically abusing his position? I'm presenting facts that suggest a pattern requiring investigation. The most recent case involves Vice President Cole Mercer, who received an unprecedented promotion following the beginning of a personal relationship with Sterling. I showed the timeline without showing explicit evidence. Professional, clinical, devastating. If this pattern becomes public, your stock price will collapse. Your reputation will be destroyed, and you'll face lawsuits that make those severance packages look insignificant. The aftermath of my presentation was swift and brutal. The board called an emergency session. Sterling was summoned. I wasn't present for that conversation, but Lawrence called me afterward. We're placing Sterling on administrative leave, pending a full investigation. We're also reviewing all recent promotions and personnel decisions. What about the VP of Operations position? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Cole Mercer will be suspended as well until we determine the extent of his involvement and whether his promotion was merit-based or influenced by personal relationships. I understand. Thank you for taking this seriously. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. You may have saved this company from a catastrophic scandal. I hung up and allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. Then I called my divorce attorney. It's time. File the papers. That evening, Cole came home early, his face ashen. He'd been called into a meeting with HR and legal. They'd informed him of his suspension, the investigation, the allegations. This was you, he said when he saw me. Not angry, just defeated. This was all you. This was you, I corrected. You and Sterling created this situation. I just documented it. You've destroyed my career. No. You destroyed your career when you decided sleeping with your boss was more important than your integrity. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. What happens now? Now you face the consequences of your choices. The board investigation will determine whether you keep your job. My attorney will determine how we split our assets. And you figure out whether Sterling's promises were worth losing everything else. The divorce papers were served 3 days later. Cole signed them without fighting, too buried in his own career crisis to contest anything. The board's investigation uncovered everything I'd documented and more. Former employees started talking once they realized the NDAs might not protect Sterling anymore. Stories emerged of manipulation, coercion, and abuse of power. Sterling was formally terminated 2 weeks after my presentation. His severance was minimal, negotiated down by lawyers who threatened criminal charges if he contested it. The scandal made industry news. Cole's name was mentioned, though not as prominently as Sterling's. He became known as one of the executives who'd benefited from an unethical relationship. His promotion was revoked. He was offered his old position back at a reduced salary, pending completion of ethics training. He declined and resigned instead. I watched his world crumble from the safety of my growing business. The Harrington Group deal had led to 3 more major clients. My reputation as a strategic consultant was building. I was invited to speak at conferences about corporate ethics and crisis management. The irony of becoming an expert on the very scandal I'd orchestrated wasn't lost on me. Cole tried calling several times, but I never answered. Our communication went through lawyers. He moved out of our house. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved back to his hometown in Ohio, taking a mid-level position at a small firm. Sterling, meanwhile, faced multiple lawsuits. His wife divorced him. His reputation was destroyed. Everything he'd built crumbled because he couldn't control his impulses. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Cole requested a meeting. Against my better judgment, I agreed to coffee at a neutral location downtown. He looked different. Thinner, older, humbled. The arrogance that had once defined him was gone. "Thank you for seeing me," he said as we sat down. "I wasn't sure you would. I'm curious why you wanted to meet. I owed you an apology. A real one, not the half-hearted attempts I made when everything fell apart." "I'm listening." Cole took a deep breath. "I was selfish and stupid. I got caught up in the excitement of the affair, the power, the ambition. Sterling made me feel important in a way I'd never felt before. But that doesn't excuse what I did to you. What I destroyed. No, it doesn't. I know I can't undo the hurt. I know we can't go back. But I wanted you to know that losing you was the worst consequence of my choices. Not the job, not the reputation. Losing you. I studied his face, looking for manipulation or hidden angles. All I saw was genuine regret. I appreciate you saying that, Cole. But apologies don't change what happened. You made your choices. I made mine. Your choices destroyed my career. There was no accusation in his voice, just acknowledgement. My choices held you accountable. There's a difference. I know. And you were right to do it. Sterling was toxic. What we were doing was wrong. I just wish I'd realized it before I lost everything. We talked for another hour. Cole told me about his new life in Ohio, working for a small manufacturing firm. The pay was a fraction of what he'd made at Sterling Maxwell. The work was basic. The future was uncertain. I'm starting over, he said. Learning to be a better person. Going to therapy. Trying to understand why I made such destructive choices. That's good. You needed to face yourself. What about you? I've seen articles about your company. You're doing incredibly well. I am. Turns out I was always capable of success. I just needed to stop building someone else's dreams and start building my own. I held you back. It wasn't a question. You did. But I let you. That's something I've had to accept about myself. I made myself smaller to make you feel bigger. That was my choice and it was wrong. Cole nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I always knew you were talented. I just didn't want to admit that you might be more successful than me. I know. We finished our coffee in silence. As we stood to leave, Cole touched my arm gently. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Did you ever love me? Or was I always just someone you were analyzing, studying, preparing to destroy? The question caught me off guard. I loved you completely. That's why the betrayal hurt so much. And why my revenge was so thorough. You don't get that angry at someone you never cared about. He nodded, something like relief crossing his face. Thank you for that, at least. After that meeting, Cole and I maintained minimal contact. A text message on birthdays. A brief email when mutual friends got married. We were two people who'd once built a life together, now strangers connected only by shared history. My business continued to thrive. Within a year of the Sterling Maxwell scandal, I'd hired 5 employees and opened an office in downtown Chicago. Within 2 years, I'd expanded to New York and Los Angeles. I became known as the consultant who could navigate complex corporate crises with surgical precision. I spoke at conferences, wrote articles, built a reputation that had nothing to do with being anyone's wife. I dated occasionally, but never seriously. The betrayal had left scars that made trust difficult. But I was content with my independence, my success, my freedom. Sterling, meanwhile, disappeared from public life entirely. Last I heard, he was living in Florida, his fortune depleted by legal fees and settlements. His company had rebranded, removing his name from everything. He became a cautionary tale about executives who believed power made them untouchable. Cole stayed in Ohio. Through mutual connections, I learned he'd met someone new. A teacher named Rebecca, who knew nothing about his past in Chicago. He was building a simpler life, apparently learning from his mistakes. I felt nothing hearing this news. No jealousy, no satisfaction, no lingering pain. He was just someone I used to know who taught me important lessons about self-worth and boundaries. 3 years after everything fell apart, Lawrence Brennan invited me to dinner. Not a business meeting, but a personal invitation. We'd maintained a professional relationship throughout the scandal's aftermath. He'd been impressed by my handling of the crisis and had referred several clients to my firm. I want to thank you properly, he said over wine at his favorite restaurant. Not just for what you did for the company, but for having the courage to expose something everyone else was too afraid to address. I had personal motivations, I admitted. It wasn't purely altruistic. Most whistleblowers do. That doesn't diminish the impact. You saved that company and prevented others from being victimized. That matters. We talked about business, about the industry, about life. Lawrence was older, divorced, focused on his work and his grown children. He understood ambition and the sacrifices it required. Can I ask you something? He said eventually. If you could go back, knowing what you know now, would you have married Cole? I considered the question carefully. No. But I wouldn't have become who I am without that experience. The betrayal forced me to find strength I didn't know I had. It made me stop seeking validation from others and start building something that was entirely mine. So you're grateful for the pain? I'm grateful for the lessons. The pain was just the delivery method. Lauren smiled. You're remarkable, Indy. I hope you know that. That dinner led to others. A friendship developed, then something more. Lawrence never tried to fix me or change me. He respected my boundaries and my independence. What we built together was partnership between equals, not possession. For years after the scandal, I was invited to speak at a business ethics conference in New York. The topic was corporate culture and personal responsibility. As I prepared my presentation, I reflected on how far I'd come from that Tuesday afternoon when I discovered Cole's phone messages. I'd built a multi-million-dollar consulting firm. I'd helped dozens of companies navigate crises and establish ethical guidelines. I'd become someone I was proud to be, independent of anyone else's validation. The night before my speech, I ran into someone unexpected in the hotel lobby. Sterling Maxwell. He looked nothing like the powerful executive I remembered. He'd aged badly, stress and consequences etched into his face. He saw me at the same moment. For a second, I thought he might turn and leave. Instead, he walked over. Indy, he said quietly, I wasn't sure you'd remember me. How could I forget? He flinched at my tone but didn't retreat. I came to this conference to try to rebuild my reputation. I've been consulting on a small scale, trying to start over. How's that working out? Slowly. People don't forget scandals easily. He paused. I heard about your company. You've done well. I have. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For my role in destroying your marriage. For the pattern of behavior that hurt so many people. I've spent years in therapy trying to understand why I did what I did. And what did you learn? That power corrupted me. That I used people's ambitions and insecurities against them. That I was selfish and destructive. He met my eyes. I can't undo the damage. But I am genuinely sorry. I studied Sterling for a long moment. The apology felt genuine, but apologies didn't erase consequences. I appreciate you saying that. But you need to understand something. What you did to me was terrible, but what you did to others was worse. You created a culture where people felt they had to trade integrity for advancement. You ruined careers, marriages, lives. I know. Do you? Because saying you're sorry doesn't rebuild what you destroyed. It doesn't give back what you took. You're right. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I recognize the harm I caused. I nodded slowly. Then here's my advice, Sterling. If you want to rebuild your reputation, start by helping others avoid making your mistakes. Speak honestly about what you did and why it was wrong. Use your experience as a cautionary tale. That's the only redemption available to you. That's what I've been trying to do. Try harder. I walked away without looking back, feeling lighter somehow. Closure wasn't about accepting apologies. It was about releasing the anger and moving forward. The next day, I delivered my speech to a packed auditorium. I talked about corporate culture, ethical responsibility, and the importance of accountability. I shared the Sterling Maxwell case study without naming him, using it as an example of how one person's choices could corrupt an entire organization. The audience responded enthusiastically. After my speech, 3 companies approached me about consulting contracts. 2 business schools invited me to guest lecture. A publisher asked if I'd consider writing a book about corporate ethics. That evening, I called Lawrence from my hotel room. We've been together for over a year now, building something stable and healthy. How did it go? He asked. Better than I expected. I think I'm actually good at this teaching thing. Of course you are. You're good at everything you commit to. I smiled at his confidence in me. Sterling was there. At the conference? That must have been awkward. He apologized. Said he's trying to rebuild his reputation. How did that feel? Anticlimactic, honestly. I expected to feel angry or vindicated. Instead, I just felt indifferent. He's not relevant to my life anymore. That's healthy. You've moved past it. I have. Finally. Lawrence was quiet for a moment. I'm proud of you, Indy. Not just for your success, but for how you've handled everything. You could have let what Cole and Sterling did make you bitter. Instead, you used it to build something remarkable. I had a good support system. You've been a big part of that. I'm glad. When you get back, I want to talk to you about something. What kind of something? The good kind. Nothing to worry about. Just some thoughts about our future. I hung up feeling content. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I'd built it from the ruins of betrayal, and that made it all the more valuable. 6 months later, I stood in my office looking out at Chicago's skyline. Blackwell Strategy Solutions now occupied an entire floor of a downtown high-rise. We had 20 employees, offices in 3 cities, and a client roster that included Fortune 500 companies. My assistant knocked on my open door. You have a visitor. Cole Mercer. He doesn't have an appointment, but he said it's important. I was surprised, but curious. Send him in. Cole entered looking better than when I'd seen him last. More confident, healthier, like he'd finally found stability. Indy, thank you for seeing me. Cole, this is unexpected. He looked around my office, taking in the success that filled every corner. You've built something incredible here. Thank you. What brings you to Chicago? I'm actually moving back. I got a job offer with Henderson Manufacturing. It's a good position, nothing like Sterling Maxwell, but solid. I'll be running their operations division. Congratulations. That's great. Thanks. I wanted to tell you in person rather than you hearing through the grapevine. He paused, and I wanted to give you something. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $100,000. What's this? The money I owed you from the divorce. I know the settlement divided our assets fairly, but I always felt like you deserved more. You were the one who supported my career for years. This is my way of acknowledging that. Cole, you don't have to, I want to. Please, let me do this one thing right. I took the check, more touched by the gesture than the amount. Thank you. This is generous. It's overdue. Cole sat down when I gestured to a chair. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever wonder how things might have been different? If I hadn't been so stupid and selfish. I considered the question. Sometimes. But honestly, Cole, I don't think we were ever right for each other. We were young and attracted to ideas of what we thought we should want. You wanted success and validation. I wanted security and partnership. Neither of us was really seeing the other person clearly. That's very mature of you. It took time to get here. And a lot of therapy. He smiled. I've been in therapy too. It's helped me understand my patterns. Why I sought validation through achievement and relationships instead of from within. That's important insight. Rebecca, my girlfriend, has helped too. She doesn't care about my career or my past. She just wants me to be a good person. It's refreshing. I'm glad you found that. Everyone deserves a fresh start. We talked for a while longer, comparing notes on therapy and personal growth. When he left, I felt a sense of completion. Not reconciliation, exactly, but a mutual acknowledgement that we'd both learned and grown from our shared disaster. That evening, Lawrence and I had dinner at our favorite restaurant. We'd been together for 2 years now, building something real and lasting. Over dessert, Lawrence reached across the table and took my hand. I know you value your independence, he said, his tone steady and sincere. And I respect everything you've built on your own. I smiled faintly. I sense a but coming. He shook his head. Not a but, an and. I love your strength, your intelligence, your refusal to bend for anyone. And I want to build more if you'll let me. He opened a small velvet box. Inside, a simple platinum ring gleamed under the candlelight. Elegant, unpretentious, real. My throat tightened. For years, I'd been someone's accessory, someone's background. Lawrence never treated me like that. He saw me. I'm not asking you to say yes tonight, he said softly. Just think about forever on your own terms. I nodded, closing the box. You always make me think, Lawrence. Good, he said. Thinking saved you. It made you you. As our glasses touched, a quiet peace settled over me, a peace I thought I'd never feel again. I answered, half smiling. Lawrence. But the voice on the other end broke the air like glass. Evelyn, it's Daniel. My ex-husband. The man who betrayed me for his boss and lost everything trying to please her. They're firing me. I need your help. Please. You're the only one who can fix this. I let silence hang heavy. The old me would have run to save him. The new me had learned what self-worth truly costs. Why call me, Daniel? You made your choice. Because I was wrong, he choked. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. His voice trembled, mine didn't. You taught me something, I said. Some things don't deserve saving. I ended the call. No tears, no shaking, just stillness. The kind that comes after reclaiming every broken piece of yourself. For years, I thought revenge meant watching him fall. But real revenge was rising higher than he ever imagined I could. Never waste your power proving your worth to those who once dismissed it. The sweetest justice is peace, earned, not begged for.